Perfect. Thank you. I'm
Oh,
also going to put.
wow. That's so crazy that
Oh, it's really, you know what, it's so beyond shocking because actually, you know what, I like this format. It's a little bit
I
more
agree.
personal and no,
Yeah.
look, I mean, it's one of those things that that also make you wonder about different geopolitical positions, you know, like so in one hand, yes, within the contemporary arts
Hmm.
haven't had any spanners into our wheels, you know. So nobody has ever come and saying, "Oh, because of that show, I'm going to shut down your gallery" or anything like this, you know. But on the other hand, you know, like just imagine I am forced in 2020 to give you a mobile phone call
Right.
because somebody is greedy enough. There is a monopoly between two companies, and they're trying to milk as much as they can, as long as they can, you know. And
Right.
this is all under the shelter of it's for your own safety and so on, you know.
So fascinating. Okay, wait, I have to properly introduce you first
Okay,
because we've been trying to do this for the last 10 minutes, but
very good.
so this is my very special edition of my Praise You chats, and this is Sunday around 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and Kourosh Nouri, the founder of Carbon 12 Gallery in Dubai. And we met actually very recently through James Clark, who you used to represent and is a dear friend. And we met at the Armory Show in early March. So just 2 months ago, which seems like a lifetime ago, seems like, you know, all the behaviors have changed. But when you and I met, it was cute because, you know, you're like just the most like friendly, affable person, and I kind of had to go, I'm sorry, I'm not shaking hands and I'm not hugging, I'm not kissing. So we did our curtsy and bow, which was probably the most adorable thing ever, and that
That's true.
endeared you to me greatly. But also, you know, I loved your booth at the Armory and your enthusiasm for supporting your artists and supporting your gallery was just, you know, it was apparent. It was like front and center, and I was like, this guy is good at his job. You are animated and you are energetic, which must have been very hard during that week because things were changing very fast through the week.
Mhm.
But why don't you tell us briefly about your gallery and your work in Dubai?
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, again, thank you. It was amazing meeting you. And the bowing and the curtsy. By the way, I still have a hat here just in case I need to do the.
Good morning, sir. Good
Good
morning.
morning, madam. Yeah. Listen, I mean, it was indeed a pleasure meeting you, and I must say, like James is a very good man. He's a great artist. I mean, we did like really, really good shows together in Dubai, you know,
Mhm.
and yeah, and basically, as you mentioned, I mean, we went from okay, let's be safe and let's not shake hands to a crazy world, you know.
Mhm.
So basically, Armory was finished on a Sunday. 2 days later, we flew back to Dubai.
Mhm.
The first thing that happened to me, because you know I'm a double national,
Oh,
and
I
one of
didn't
my
know that.
nationality is Iranian, and the other one is Austrian. You know, and
Okay.
the first thing here at the airport from a full flight
Mm.
from New York, based on my nationality, I just went and I got a swab of my nose, and I had a corona test. You know, so it was quite interesting that what became one of the biggest epicenters of
Mm.
corona, New York,
Mhm.
the only person who got tested from that flight was me, you know.
Wow.
So absurd things, you know. So you saw like from this the frenzy of Armory, of shaking 200 hands and
Right.
kissing 400 cheeks and etc. So we went suddenly to an absurd world
Mm.
that that especially me as somebody born in Iran, like I'm a Middle Eastern, so
Mhm.
I don't hug, I don't shake hand, I don't brush your shoulders.
Mhm.
There is no human interaction for me, you know.
Mm.
So I don't come from a culture where distance is a polite thing to do. Actually, I come from a culture of touching, of you know, it's simply different.
Right.
So we went from. It's very amusing that it was with you actually, because you are one of the very gracious people when you didn't shake hands, you put it in a very elegant way. And we ended up doing the famous bow and curtsy, you know, so it was kind of cool. But anyway, since then, things changed dramatically. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
crazy world.
Crazy world. So during the course of the Armory show in March, did you get a sense that people were feeling the effects of the virus, or was that not really a part of any of the conversations?
I mean, it was very funny because the first 2 days of the fair,
Mm-hmm.
it was as if Armory had its own bubble.
Yeah.
It was it was all about Armory. It was all about New Yorkers. You know, it's very funny for me. Like I have this very romantic concept of New York.
Yeah.
When I think of New York, I think of a lot of cult movies and of the most famous New Yorker superhero, which is Spider-Man. You know,
Right,
the
right.
Spider-Man represents in my, like, let's say in my naive world, the
Uh-huh.
New Yorker spirit. So
Oh,
you guys come together, you have an art fair, you go and at the cost of your life, you maintain this art fair.
right.
And you know what? And the first 2 days of Armory, it was really like this, you know.
Yeah.
People were coming forward saying, listen, you're our guest, you know, we're New Yorkers, we're going to shake your hand, we're going to hug you and so on, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly, I think the information started to compute in people's mind
Mm.
because we also saw a lot of shitty movies
Mm.
where there is a propagation of a virus and we
Yeah.
start peeling off, etc. You know,
Right.
and this popular culture started to make people think a little bit differently. And actually, what was really shocking, once Armory was over,
Mm-hmm.
the Monday after, where we were around in New York,
Mm-hmm.
we felt this repressive, oh my God, there is a fascist government with
Mm.
those armored trucks coming and taking over New York,
Yeah.
etc. So it went really from an eerie, beautiful scene from Spider-Man where New Yorkers are together
Yeah.
to a kind of an end of the world,
Yeah.
epidemic, pandemic horror.
So one from
And
Spider-Man to Contagion. It was.
yes, totally.
Yeah.
This is how I felt it, and it was very funny because like when we stick to nonfiction, so
Mm-hmm.
basically we stay with facts of what happened in Armory. To my personal shock, of course, I mean, you have been kind to mention it. We had an incredible project,
Yeah. It
and
was a great booth.
the project did incredibly well. And to my very pleasant surprise, except one or two idiotic cancellation
Mm.
that happens in every art fair,
Mm.
people did honor their deals, you know. And
Right.
and I think this was quite amazing
Yeah.
that even with the fear of pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
people thought, listen, we have shaken hands,
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
have to honor our deal. And this is, for example, one of the things me as an international dealer
Mm-hmm.
who comes to the US, I really respect because there is this culture of honoring a deal.
That's
And for
true.
example, in the US, I had very rarely, I think it happened so far maybe twice or 3 times, that people did not honor the handshake, you know.
Right.
And this is what me as a dealer who represents my artist, listen, I see myself as a gallerist.
Yeah.
I work with my artist, I work for my artist, you know.
Right.
So for me, people honoring their handshake
Mm-hmm.
is one of the most important part of my business ethic.
Mm.
And I must say, like, despite Corona, pandemic, and etc., New Yorkers, again, I tip my hat to them. They have been amazing, you know.
That's great, and I have to say, I mean, you're lucky. You know, I personally have been in situations where the handshake was not honored, or even a contract. But you know, that is also a rarity. I think it's also true. You know, I used to work at Sotheby's in a very emerging market, and the handshake or the deal or the bid was often a difficult chase. So I think it's true. I think Americans, the U.S. culture in terms of fine arts is very sophisticated in that way. And,
Yes.
you know, that is one thing that we have going for us, which is great. Okay, so then you went back and you went to Dubai, and then what happened? First of all, how has the pandemic affected Dubai?
I mean, look, it was very funny because look, we have a very hands-on and ballsy approach in our practice. So me and my partner, we are really on the terrain 24/7. You know?
Yeah.
So for us was, you know what? We will do everything that we're being told that makes sense. And we are going to keep on doing as if we're going to do the best out of it.
Like
You know?
go do business as usual to the extent
Yes.
that you can.
Yes. Yes. So that was the initial, like put it that way. That was the intention, you know.
Yeah.
And what happened is we were in conversation with our Dubai team because remember the week after Armory was supposed to be our art week,
right,
and our art fair.
Yes. Yes.
So they were like, everybody was getting cold feet, and for a good reason, because we had no idea about how to handle, how to tackle, how to, well, it was so many unknown, you know.
Yeah.
So basically we said, listen guys, I don't care what's going on. Even if the fair doesn't take place, I go to my wonderful landlord, Al Circal, and I tell him, listen, lend me an extra warehouse. I will bring one-to-one my booth of Art Dubai, 100 meters away from the gallery, and we will do our emergency default art fair, even if they don't do it.
Okay.
But then suddenly we got run over by a couple of bulldozers and tanks and buses, etc. Because I mean, figuratively.
Oh. Okay. So like, so the government, or I don't want to say the government, but authorities stopped.
Yeah, basically, I think with the little information that everybody had, the authorities jumped in. They canceled the fair. And then eventually, a couple of days later, I mean, obviously they had to go on lockdown, you know.
Yeah.
Which is still, to date, with the information we have, seems to be the most reasonable approach to tackle the pandemic, you know. Yeah. Look, don't get me wrong. I am as annoyed as any business in this planet to be in a lockdown.
Yeah.
But so far, from this puzzle that they are presenting us, by they, I'm talking about the media, the authorities, the agencies, the health organizations, etc. From this incomplete puzzle we're being provided with, there is, I think, two facts I kind of believe in is the social distancing and the carrying of the mask. You know.
Yeah.
The rest is, you know how I feel. I'd be very honest with you, Ying. You know, I feel like somebody has handed over a puzzle to me. And first of all, the origin of the puzzle is dodgy. So I don't know if the manufacturer of the puzzle has really made a puzzle. So if it's possible to finish it. And I know de facto that there is so many information missing, you know. Right. And this is exactly what we are looking at. The only certitude here we have is we're going to hit a major economic meltdown.
Right.
That's the only certitude.
Yeah. So how do you adjust your forecasts going into the rest of 2020, into the next year? You know, I mean, I have so many questions for you, to be honest, but let's focus on that. How do you adjust your business forecasts in a time like this?
I mean, look, it's basically a business textbook. They always teach you when, apologize for my French, I have a very graphic way of speaking. When the shit start to hit the fan.
Oh, that's yeah, whatever. That's just like everyday in New York.
Yeah, that's everyday language. Yeah. So basically, one of the main thing is to try to cut costs, obviously. But again, the lockdown automatically brings us to a cost-cutting situation, right? Because except grocery and cleaning products, end up using nothing. I mean, I think what the only extras we have is the monthly Netflix membership. You know, you even don't drive your car anymore properly because you don't need to tank anymore.
Right.
So there.
Cost of gas is incredible. I mean, I don't know about your region, but yeah, it's basically free.
Ying, I think very soon somebody is going to pay me each time I show up at the gas station.
Yeah, I know. It's like, you get a cookie and a credit and money. Thank you for coming. Although I did pull into a gas station the other night because it had the lowest. It was like $2.09 a gallon, which here is very, you know, just incredibly cheap. because
It's
I was
crazy.
seeing like $2.40 on average. And it let me insert my credit card, but it wouldn't let me pump any gas. It was almost like as if the gas station was just deserted. I'm not
Wow.
even kidding you. Yeah, and this is in Boston. It was very interesting. I don't know. I haven't been back, but it was like they just gave up, or they're just on lockdown too. You know, because why sell gas right now? There's no point.
No, I
Anyway.
think you know what I think. I think it's a really hard time for everyone.
Mhm.
So whether you are in the art industry, whether you are in car manufacturing, in advertising, etc., of course there is like always the few who make money.
Mhm. Mhm.
But you know what? I mean, look, I mean, I think we have to be a little bit more pragmatic about what's coming up, basically.
Mhm.
So we sat down, of course, like let's go back to the beginning of our conversation.
Yeah.
So we return here and then we realize there is a lockdown.
Yeah.
And then this is where we started to doing our accounts.
Mm.
So, okay, well, let's try to cut costs, let's try to have an open conversation. For example, what's really formidable here
Mhm.
is the 6 top galleries in Dubai. We are very close to each other.
Uh-huh.
So we sat down, and you know what? We're very good friends.
Yeah.
Like we are on a phone call basis. It's not only WhatsApp and so on. We call each other.
Mhm.
So we sat down saying, listen, guys, it sucks,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it sucks for everyone.
Yeah.
So how can we proceed in order to make changes?
Right.
And how can we actually try to survive for another year? Because I think the whole challenge is not so much what's happening in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's what's going to happen up until next May to 21.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is where your question was very relevant. Is okay. How do you want to survive this year?
Mhm.
Have you done your numbers, etc.? So I think in terms of cost, we're pretty much reduced to, I would say, doing exhibitions.
Mhm.
Which,
So no art fairs.
look, I mean,
I'm not like no one's traveling to them anyway, right? Yeah.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And you know what? And I think this brings a kind of a moment of reflection
Mhm.
where we're going to think about, okay, why that city
Mhm.
with this notoriously shitty art fair
Mhm.
was existing for so many years.
Mhm.
First question,
Mhm.
why the F this shitty art fair has been dragged along for so many years.
Uh-huh.
Come on, it's a limping horse. It's miserable, it's suffering. Somebody comes and puts a bullet in the poor beast's head. So
Mhm.
that's number one question.
Mhm.
So from there onwards, then now with what we know,
Mhm.
even all the sanitary restrictions are going to come into the play and saying, listen, I'm sorry, your venue
Yeah.
sucks. Your venue is dangerous. Your walls are too close.
Yeah.
Your distance between the people is not enough in order to create a safe environment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the second limitation that's going to come. And I'm not even getting into uh, putting you in a plane and flying you to
Right.
Brussels or to Vienna. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
So we're not even at that point.
Mhm.
So all those factors are going to come into play
Mm.
and make us think like, okay, are we
Yeah, that's a very
hopefully?
good question. Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
are
Like
we?
even just like the structural aspects of art fairs and how the booths are set up and and then for gallerists asking and gallerists have been asking for years, is this worth it? Is this worth it? But now it's more the question of, not just is it worth it, but is the infrastructure that you're giving me literally worth my money to be there? I mean, are you going to give me enough space? And if they need to start distancing booths too, then it's just like with theaters, you can't fill to capacity
Exactly.
probably. So then the art, I don't know, I'm not speaking for art fairs, but how are they going to make money? Yeah, it's a complete rethinking or reset really of how this is done.
I mean, what makes me smile is to the all the question is this art fair worth my life?
It isn't. I mean, has it ever been? But I mean, let's get real. When did you start doing art fairs?
I mean, I must say we were pretty lucky because we had a very clear art fair strategy from day one.
Okay.
It's actually art fairs is what my partner does, you know. So
Okay.
she's really good at putting together booth, the proposals, etc. You know, but of course, you know, because it's a very healthy partnership. We discuss everything together.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't step over each other's
Got it.
tasks. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And the fact that we're also a couple that forces us to
Mm-hmm.
respect each other's boundaries
Yeah.
because
That's
otherwise you end up just fighting from morning
all
till
right.
night.
That's very smart. That's very smart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, from day one, we're pretty lucky. We had a very clear art fair strategy,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and we got into all the art fair that we thought back then were the right steps for us. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I think from year two of the gallery,
Mm-hmm.
we're already doing regularly art fairs, etc. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think we have more or less now up to, I think we're around 50 art fairs under our belt. Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my
I think
God.
40, for sure 44 or something like this, you know. Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. That is so much more than I expected you to say. Wow. Okay.
Listen, it's also brings me to explain you our global strategy in
Yeah.
terms of contemporary practice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
was never about, ah, let's go and find an isolated place in this planet,
Mm-hmm.
which was Dubai back in 2008, and try to find a smart ass way of making money. It
Right.
wasn't about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was all about building a program of contemporary practitioners
Mm-hmm.
that we found relevant and excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you notice that we die for our artists. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we believe so deeply in their practice
Mm-hmm.
that when you talk to me, uh, you're thinking, okay, man, this guy should be making a lot of money with this artist to throw himself like this on the ring. And actually, for some of the artists, you know, like you saw, the prices were very, the price points are very reasonable. So a large majority of them are not the artists you would say, oh, I'm going to have a luxurious lifestyle just by representing those guys. So coming back to the initial global strategy was about, okay, let's bring together a dream team
Mm.
and let's dream team do the talk with their work, you know. So
Yeah.
it wasn't about, and don't forget, you know, like we were, I mean, you probably with your experience with Sotheby's, you had that, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a tendency to regionalization of the
Right.
art.
Right.
So like, let's say, for example, Iranian collectors want to buy Iranian artists.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Syrian collectors want to buy Syrian collectors.
Right.
I don't know, like Saudi collectors want to buy. And basically, we were the first one in the region who said, listen, hey, wait a second.
Mm.
I was born in Iran,
Mm.
but that doesn't mean that anybody who has an Iranian nationality is a great artist.
Right. Right.
So let us do the job of a gallerist,
Mm.
building artists, working for them, and making their contemporary practice universal, you know.
Right.
So of course the strategy was very global. That's why we had to do art first, because back then in 2010, I think was the first time we did Art Dubai.
Mm.
It was super regional, you know. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I will never forget, we were showing Andre Butzer and Sarah Rahbar, artists like this. And back then, whoever was directing the fair, they put us next to the toilets.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was quite interesting. So it shows like from what the region went to what.
Yeah.
And you know what, with in a very humble way, we
Mm-hmm.
have been a very active players
Yeah.
because we kept on preaching, listen, contemporary art
Mm-hmm.
does not recognize passports. It's not
Right.
about nationality.
Right.
You can be an amazing, I don't know, Taiwanese artist
Mm-hmm.
based in Moscow,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you can be a terrible Iranian artist based in New York, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So where you were born doesn't factor into great
Right.
contemporary practice,
Right.
So that was a little bit our approach to art fairs, to
Yeah.
our vision of the art, basically,
I think that's great. And it shows in the success of your initial strategy, right? I mean, you guys are, you have artists, actually, most of your artists, it seems, are international. I mean, they're not regional to Dubai. And here's my question about that then, as their gallerist and as someone who's supporting their practice in terms of the promotion and sales, how has the pandemic affected, if at all, what you are doing with them?
I mean, look, it's very amusing. There is this will
Mm,
to go beyond the pandemic,
mm,
So in my own jargon, when I talk to my friends,
mm.
I call it the COVID fuck because it annoys me, because it's offensive to all my senses that we have to live such a nightmare situation
Mhm,
that, by the way, it is real,
mhm.
but also the media has been making serious banking on that COVID situation,
Sure,
like we have been
sure,
overboard.
sure. Yep.
So I think the whole, again, is the story of the puzzle. Somebody handed us over a puzzle. First of all, the manufacturer is dodgy. I
Mm,
don't think they finished that puzzle themselves.
mhm,
And on top of it, we know there is so many pieces missing,
mhm,
but guess what? They're asking us to solve it.
mhm,
So we are like half-heartedly trying to make the best out of it. So I would initially, from day one, we wanted to go beyond the
mhm,
pandemic conversation.
mm,
And our approach was, listen, guys, artists,
mhm,
you're all amazing.
mhm,
We believe in everything you do. And we have been working really hard.
mhm,
In case you need some money, we will dig in deeper in our treasury.
mm,
We'll make things work for you.
mm,
And worst case scenario, in a metaphorical way, we'll find a way to sell ourselves
mm.
and find the necessary funds to allow you to continue your practice.
Yeah.
And please, and that was the conversation we're having with the artists,
Okay.
please, guys, don't come and make pandemic paintings, don't come and
Okay.
make uh, COVID animation, don't come and make this and that. Please do your practice as good as you can.
Uh-huh.
And you know what, Ying? You know what happened? They were in quarantine. They were in lockdown like everybody else.
Mhm,
And I'm using an incredible artist as a reference,
mhm,
which is Sarah Rahbar.
mhm.
She is I mean, I'm not going to dig into the curatorial merits of her practice.
Yeah.
She is an incredible artist.
Uh-huh.
Suddenly,
Uh-huh.
this 40-year-old amazing woman cannot go to the foundry. She cannot go and source vintage objects. She's limited to her studio.
Right.
And guess what? She sits down at her desk and she starts making these mind-blowing collages
Oh.
that
Right.
nobody has ever expected, because her practice went from
Yeah.
textile
Yeah.
into sculpture, and now suddenly she's coming back on paper. But
Mm,
guess, they are amazing.
that's great.
So you see, I
Yeah.
think the bottom line is, when you do not concentrate on the
Mhm,
contextual,
mhm.
that is lasting. We don't know how long it's going to last. Look,
Right.
I don't know if you remember, there were a couple of years ago, there was SARS.
Mhm.
Some years before that, there was Ebola. There
Yeah.
was foot and mouth disease, God knows where they
Yeah.
were burning the cows.
Mhm.
So we had all those stories behind us. And
Right.
to be honest with you, except some fragments,
Mhm,
I have nothing in my memory. And
mm,
you know why? Because we didn't have those bastard media,
mm,
social media, and etc., who's
mm.
bombarding us from morning till dawn about the
Uh,
pandemic.
right.
So guess what? There is one possibility
Mhm,
that in 2 years' time,
mhm.
Ying and Kourosh meet. We give each other a proper hug instead
Right.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
distancing ourselves.
Yeah.
And we can't even remember that
Yeah.
in 2020, for 3 months, we were like idiots locked down at home.
Well,
That's also a possibility.
I mean, it's possible. My friend Marguerite, who spoke with me a few days ago, was saying that some people have been calling this perhaps like childbirth. You know, it's so painful while you're in it, and then once it's out and done, you know, once you're finished with it, you have amnesia over it, and we don't know yet, right? But there's so many people that it's affecting. I mean, you know, I think it's become such a global story. To me, it's a little bit different from the others. But my friend who's a scientist that I spoke with the other day, he said, you know, throughout our society, we've just had plague years. We're going to have a plague year this year and probably next year. That's just how it's going to be. But something about the practice perhaps changing due to, you know, your living circumstances and not having access to your studio. Eugenie Tsai, the curator of the Brooklyn Museum, spoke with me early on, and she said that several artists that she's spoken with who are artists that work more on their social practice artists have just gone back to drawing, are just drawing more.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a prime example. But at the same time, a few other artists I've spoken with have, especially in the beginning, said that they felt like they were in this creative abyss. They couldn't get out of, you know, the emotions, the heart, what was going on. And I don't know about Dubai, but, you know, in the US, there really is no financial safety net for artists. So you can go ahead and create if you want, but so many artists, especially the first few weeks, were just struggling to figure out how to get unemployment, how to get, you know, the funding from the government. So I think it's a universal story, but also to the swath of artists that are in the United States, and I'm sure elsewhere, you know, the financial difficulty, I think, has just been really hard to swallow.
I mean, look, I think it's a pandemic, so it's global.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it hits people regionally differently.
Yeah, right.
And what's really, I think it's horrible. And you know what? I do my profession because I love artists and I respect them. A large majority of the artists we know could have perfectly made a very decent living by just going and getting a clerical job, you know.
Right.
But, you know, they took their courage in their hands, they moved forward, they made sacrifices, they supported irony and sarcasm, you know, and they went out there and, you know, they made, and you know what, and that's why, for example, I'm one of the people who has the utmost respect for artists who become successful financially.
Yeah.
And sometimes people think, oh my God, can you imagine this guy went and bought this and that? I say, guys, this guy is a true artist. By selling contemporary art, he can afford a fancy car, he can afford a fancy motorbike, he can afford a house. It shows how incredible those people are, you know. So back to this, the love I have for artists and what they make breaks my heart. And actually my partner Nadine, she was even more heartbroken than me, because look, I'm older, I've seen a lot of shit, I've lived a revolution, I had a horrible immigration behind me, you know, so I went through a lot of crap that no human being should go through, you know. So I have a kind of a,
you're perhaps more resilient. You're, you know, I mean, you've been.
I mean, look. I mean, look, fuck it, you know. No, it's also, you know what, being from the Middle East, you learn like, okay, you know, you never know how long things are going to last. And I think that's also one of the things that breaks my heart for the Western world, is the fact is, I mean, obviously you all deserve a peaceful life. None of you really lived one of those traumatic experiences that people in Africa, in Asia, in the Middle East, in South America live, you know. So nobody's blaming anybody for their privileges, but also now suddenly I mean, I'm not pointing finger at anybody, you know, but the Western approach to the pandemic is much more traumatic than it is for me. Like individual Kourosh Nouri gets annoyed and I want to break a couple of walls, and I build the Lego, and then I decide to make some small changes because it did happen to me before. But you know what? Jack or John or Patrick or Juan, you know, like maybe they have never had these kind of shit to deal with. Good for them. But guess what? The lockdown is the end of the world.
Yeah, no, some people have, very many people in this country have not dealt with hardship in such a way. And, you know, I think one of the perhaps opportunities is looking at this from a new set of eyes and looking at the people who, you know, have suffered the most from the pandemic, which usually are minorities. You look at, you know, the homeless situation in New York, and there was this whole debate and debacle that the governor kind of had with the homeless population. There's a lot. I mean, this is a tough time for this country overall. It has been for a long time. But there was this write-up in the Irish Times, or one of the Irish newspapers, that said something to the effect of, you know, we used to envy America, we used to be jealous of America, and now we pity America. And you know, that really hit me, because I think it's.
I mean, look, I'm not a political commentator, yeah. But as a 48-year-old man who has lived in a very politicized region and who grew up most of his life in Western Europe, I have my own perspective of things, you know. So what I'm saying here is not as a political commentator, and by far I'm not taking any position. But it is indeed a very sad situation where you think that a nation that managed to save the world for fucking Nazis kind of gets into not into a government, but into a regime that brushes fascism and Nazism much more than some extreme right government in third world, you know? So, and I'm not saying that as a political commentator. I am not criticizing, I'm just observing, you know? So it's not even about pitying America. It's like feeling bad because we have American friends. We enjoy coming to the US, you know. Of course, the grass is always greener elsewhere. Whether you're an American citizen, maybe you find Canada so much better. I'm sure Canadians find the US much funner.
I don't think so. I think Canadians are pretty happy to be Canadians right now.
Yeah, I think
Canada. Yeah. Well, wait. No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Yeah. So you know what I mean. So basically, it got to a point that actually even neutral people like myself, who I mean, I'm not an idiot. I mean, obviously, I have my opinions, but I'm not here as a political commentator or a specialist of geopolitics. You know, I represent my artists. I do everything I can to represent them at the highest level. But I also can observe what's happening in the country. You know, and you know what? It's saddening that suddenly the world becomes a tool in the hand of money-making few, where social justice gets put in the last row of priority, you know. And you know what? Yes, nobody's happy to pay 55% taxes, but guess what? If you don't pay any taxes, your neighbor might come and cut your throat. That's why you need social justice.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, this country and the divide between that kind of it's just so gone. It's so messed up. But can we talk quickly? And then I think we only have about 5 more minutes. But can we talk quickly about why we weren't able to connect on Instagram Live today, and what you think it's about?
Look, again, here I don't want to step in as a specialist of geopolitics. But you know what? Okay, number one, the capitalist greed is one of the reasons. You know, basically two providers are dividing like mafiosis the right to make money.
Two wireless providers, is that what it is? Like,
It's first of all, that's the provider use the safety excuse, like, oh, we don't allow you to make FaceTime because it's not safe for the safety of the country. You're not allowed to make WhatsApp calls. And we got blocked from a very innocent conversation on Instagram just because of greed and weird logic, you know.
And so you've seen this over the last few weeks in Dubai, the
I
blocking
mean,
of these
look,
videos.
the fact that the WhatsApp calls are blocked, this is an old story. And you know, and I myself, I'm very vocal about it. I don't know, probably on my Instagram stories, the number of time I have been telling them, listen, guys, this country is doing so good. This country is so good.
Right.
There is a freedom of movement. People feel safe. People are comfortable to live with it. Why this unnecessary bad publicity? Just because greedy company A wants to compete with greedy company B. Come on. We're anyway not stealing. We're not taking anything for free. I'm paying 30 to 40% more than any international standards in this planet. If I show you our phone bills as a gallery and our mobile numbers, you will cry for us. You know? So, you know, there are things that make me, who grew up in Western Europe, say the horrible, politically incorrect and slash racist things, saying, you know what? After all, we're still in the third world. You know? And those are these kind of attitudes that hinders a lot of great countries, like this country, for example, and give an unnecessary bad publicity. Now, look, maybe we weren't thousands of people to be on this Instagram live, you know, but just enough, like 30, 40 people are going to get engaged in a conversation and say, oh my God, can you imagine Etisalat and Du and
there were so many people waiting to watch us. You know, lots of artists, lots of people from all over the world. And I'm just really happy we could do Zoom, which I know isn't a perfect platform either, but it's actually, I think it's better for conversation, to be honest, but it's, you know, it's different. With Instagram Live, you have the audience able to participate with their comments, and, you know, maybe we'll do that again with you another time. But I think that there's just so much to dig through with this conversation and with what's going on. And I can't believe we've been over an hour. I mean, sorry, over about 40 minutes at least. And we could do this for a long time, but, you know, I just hope we continue the conversation, and I definitely hope that we can reconnect in person again soon.
We will. That I'm 100% sure we will. And you know what? If you would like that, I think once I'm hitting Vienna, because most probably I'm going to spend like most of the time summer in Vienna.
Okay.
Once I'm in Vienna, let us do this on Instagram.
Let us do it.
We have our comeback.
Let us do it. I can't wait. And so I'm going to put this on the internet. I'm going to put it on YouTube. Let's hope no one blocks it. But yeah, I mean, that's so interesting, because one of my first weeks, I had a chat with Philip Tenari from Beijing. And, you know, I was afraid that he wouldn't be able to connect, but he uses like a very good VPN, and it was pretty flawless, I have to say. So I was very surprised when our video kept getting blocked.
I mean, look, of course, I can also use a VPN. Once I go to Europe, I can download a VPN. But you know what? I don't see the point, because look, we are not criminals. We're having an art conversation. We're talking about life. And you know what? And whatever critical thoughts or words I brought into this, it's not about attacking anyone. It's just about, it's so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary that, like, for example, for countries which are doing so great, bring this layer of unnecessary negative conversation. That's it.